Hello guys, so welcome to my channel. So this series we will discuss about with the SQL bootcamp. So I'm planning to record all the sessions of SQL. So this is the introduction SQL introduction, this video. So later we'll continue this series all the way. I will upload all the videos. Thank you for watching for this my channel. Uh, let's continue SQL bootcamp. So first of all, what are the prerequisites are required for this SQL? So you are a beginner or you are a non-coder or you are a non-technical background also, you can practice with the SQL from the fresh. Like just install with the any one of the RDBMS. Like any one of the RDBMS called as install like PostgreSQL, MySQL, Oracle, or SQL Server. So I seen in last couple of days from I heard the news PostgreSQL the pre-installation is perfectly not working. So better you can install with SQL Server. I'm also doing the SQL Server only, but the syntax of the uh, every database like PostgreSQL, MySQL, Oracle, or SQL Server, the syntax is to be same. Uh, just a little bit minor, 5 to 10% is to be changing. At the time, I will discuss with that one. Install an IDE such as pgadmin. If you install with the PostgreSQL, you can install with pgadmin. If you're installing MySQL, you can install with IDE MySQL Workbench. If you are installed with Oracle SQL Developer, if you install with SQL Server, install with SQL Server Management Studio SSMS. You can install. Okay, so these are the prerequisites. So which role can you target after learning SQL from this bootcamp? So the roles are in different ways. If you are opting as any role, SQL is to be mandatory. If you're opting as a data analyst, data engineer, data scientist, SQL developer, business analyst, software engineer, quality analyst, etc. If you're opting any role, the database, uh, any one of the database is to be mandatory. But right now, most of the positions are data engineer and data scientist. So this basic SQL, a little bit advanced is mandatory. If you are opting as SQL developer, you need to uh, uh, understand with the advanced SQL also. Okay. So why are you learning SQL? Just now we discussed for the positions of roles. How much SQL should you learn? So basic SQL is first mandatory. If you are interesting, then you can go with the advanced SQL also. The right approach to learn SQL is so basically, so once you learn with the SQL, you need to practice. So practice is much better. So when you practice only, then you can uh, uh, good commanding in the to write the queries. Basic terminologies. So these topics we'll discuss in this video. So data, database, relational database, RDBMS, SQL, SQL, table, column, rows. Okay. So first, what is the data? So generally, the data called as so anything and everything can be considered as a data. So anything called as, so if you consider as any information or any data, any kind of data is called as data. So anything and everything can be considered as data. Any information or fact can be considered as also data. For an insurance company, example, details related to its employees. For example, insurance company details. So its employees data, customers data, product data, or even any address can be a data. So data can be in any form, such as a text message or an image or a video or a document or a single character itself. So anything is a data, but here the data will classified as two types again, structured data and unstructured data. So in this data we are using in SQL Server or in PostgreSQL, MySQL, we are using with the relational data. So and again the data types are data will classified as two types: relational data and non-relational data. So relational data we are using. So relational data called as that is structured data. Next, database. So database is a container. So container which is filled with data or information which is electronically stored in a computer system. So electronically stored in a computer system called as, if you are selecting any data, that data we will store using the tables by our views. So we will store the data in a database. For example, if you're considering with the chocolates, so a bunch of chocolates will take, so those bunch of chocolates we will store in a box. Or if you consider as a milk, so the milk will store it 1 liter milk, 1 liter of milk will store it in a packet, or 1 liter of milk will store it in a 1 liter container. Like that, if you consider as a data, so the data which is stored in a container, that is called as database. So data in any form can be stored in the database. So in any form can be stored. So the data we have to store in any format. All companies use some sort of database to store their data. So use all companies use some sort of databases called as, so for example, one company using with Exasol database, one company using with SQL Server, one company using with Oracle, one company using with MySQL. So like that, so different companies are using with their own databases. Depends on the their criteria and their situation. So purpose of storing data in the database is so easily access the data, easily to modify the data, protect the data, analyze the data. So for why we are storing the data called as, we had to analyze the data for future purpose. So we had to take the decision making purpose, we had to store the data. Next, how the data, the simple architecture called as how the data is to be stored as, like RDBMS versus database. So first database is to store the data, like in the container. RDBMS is, so it's one of the application called as, for example, SQL Server you are using. So in RDBMS you are using with SQL Server. Based on SQL Server, we will retrieve the data from the database and application and user. For example, if you consider with the Facebook example, in the Facebook, if you enter with your user ID and password, so what happened? The end user is enters with the user ID and password. So the DBMS is RDBMS will go and check with the database. So in the database, the data is to be stored. So your user ID and password, and will get back. So that is the process about with to connect with the any database. Next, SQL is, so what is the SQL? So SQL stands for Structured Query Language, also referred to as a SQL. So the previous name, we call it as a SQL. So SQL is a programming language used to interact with relational database management system, and mainly primarily used in RDBMS. So all major RDBMS like Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL, PostgreSQL, etc. use SQL. So using SQL, you can read a data, write the data, create, modify or delete the data, analyze the data, and build the reports. So these process will look into the further videos. So how we'll read the data, how we'll write the data, how to create the database, how to modify the database, how to delete the database, how to analyze the data, and build the reports. So these we'll see later. How is data stored in RDBMS? So generally in any RDBMS, the data is to be stored as in tables. So table called as is a set of rows and columns. So the point is in RDBMS, data is stored in multiple tables. Each table can have a set of rows and columns. Different tables will be related to each other through certain columns forming relationship between these tables. So for example, if you are storing with the customer table and order table, so how will give the relation? So customer, how many number of orders placed? So that will check in the orders table. So customer information is stored as within customer table. Orders data is stored in orders table. So we'll give the relationship between customer table to orders table. Okay. So next table. So this is the one sample structure of the sample data in the table. So table one, row two, etc. So column one, column two, column three, and so on. The data is to be stored. So this is the one sample format of rows and columns. The SQL will store the data in using tables. Next, relational database. So in the left side diagram, you see with the tables. So for example, here, if we are looking with, for example, this is the customer table and this is the order table. So this customer table, orders table will give the relationship and product table. So product table to customer will give the relation like this. So for example, relation database. So this is the customer table, customer ID, name, age. Second one, orders table, order ID, date, customer ID, product ID. And last one, product table. So product table, product ID, price, currency. So in this, how we'll give the relationship called as so. For example, if you look into customer table to orders table, how the relation. So in customer table, customer ID we are giving. In orders table, in customer ID we are giving. So this customer ID to based on customer ID, we will give the relationship and to join. So this how we can join and the relationship on what basis we'll give the relationship later we'll discuss. Product ID table. So product table. So this product table to order table, how we'll give the relationship based on product ID. Okay. So this is the some sample database. Next, is SQL different in is SQL different in different RDBMS? So yeah, basically RDBMSs are these are all the different types: Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, PostgreSQL, etc. So all these are all the relational databases only, but slight difference of syntax. If you know the SQL Server, and you will write the queries about with Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL also. So 90% of the queries are same. Only 5 to 10% of the queries are little syntax is to be different. Okay. So later we'll continue with the discussion about with how we'll create the table, how we'll insert the data, how we'll delete the data, how to update the data, etc. Later we'll see. Thank you for watching.